Hi, everybody. So I'm Sarah Diamond. I'm the president of OCAD University, and I'm going to be talking about this really sort of complex, interesting space of physical computing. And I'm really hoping that we have some time at the end, for those of you who make it through all the different layers, to have a bit of a conversation. Mark asked me to talk about business models in this space. And I'm going to point at some, but I would say it's a very formative set of overlapping spaces, and I think it's really, in many ways, up to us to define new business models as technologies and opportunities open up, but I will refer to some of my ideas and also what I'm seeing emerging to some extent. So ubiquitous computing really is, the more sort of scientific, I suppose, framing, or UbiComp as it's been called for many, many years. Also pervasive computing, get an image up, ambient intelligence, or now everywhere with where W-A-R-E spelled out. And this is really where human-computer interaction occurs through natural user interfaces. So that's really not keyboard-based interactions. And I hope I'm not telling you things that you already know, or if I am, just sort of reinforcing them. Such as gestures, actions, manipulations with objects, movement through spaces. And information processing is basically integrated into these objects and activities and into physical spaces. And we talk about physical computing when it's primarily discussing objects. But again, here it's a very wide space. And I know you've heard the term the Internet of Things. And as Cisco calls it now, they call it the Internet of Everything. So this idea that we're living in this environment that's increasingly intelligent, and where all elements are wired together. So it's really small, inexpensive, robust network processing devices distributed at all scales throughout everyday life, and able to basically turn on and off switches to make your world computationally accessible. And one of the examples that's given in a domestic space is interconnecting lighting and environmental controls with your personal biometric monitors that are woven into clothing so that illumination and heating conditions in a room might be modulated continuously and imperceptibly. And we really are in that world. I mean, there's a lot of work that's happened in research labs that is now being able to roll out these technologies and these experiences. When I think about the entertainment world, I think about sensors plus data tracking and network technologies, so Bluetooth, internet, connected to objects or toys or wearable devices, watch bands or smart clothing that can be connected to the expanding internet or to their immediate vicinity. So it really is in many ways an extension of mobile computing. So all the things that mobility really has brought us, the ability to be context aware, location aware, computational experiences that are on our body. Our mobile devices are maybe in our hands, but they're very much on and working even when we're not using them. So they track us, in the world and in the space. And this is really taking mobility and many of the technologies like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth within our devices into another set of spaces. So Joanna Brzezowska, who's a really interesting researcher who works in fashion and technology and textiles, she described three really emerging fields within this large space of physical computing. So she talked about wearable computing. So in this space, by the way, this is what I'm going to be trying to do. In this space, individuals wear computers on our bodies, either as routine mobile technologies that are responsive to context and place, or as what she describes as cyborg technologies, so primarily forms of head-mounted displays, and we're going to look at a few of those and their evolution during this talk, or wristbands. The second area that she talks about is universal connectivity, and so that's really the Internet of Things that I described using biofeedback networks and monitoring technologies such as RFID. So, RFID tags are for brands like the Gap, like they're in all their clothes. I hope you know that when you're buying Gap clothing. So people are nodding yes. Does everybody know that? Okay, very good. But if you think about that environment and the kind of data that's being produced and the opportunities that it provides for, consciously designing into this world, I think it's really exciting. And RFID tags and biofeedback can be used for all kinds of, medical applications. And I think we're entering a world where the interface between physical computing, media, and the future of healthcare is in close proximity. So maybe in our conversation we can move into that space a little bit. It's an area I know really well because of our research at OCAD University and my own research, but I think it's a very exciting space also. And the third that Joanna talks about are electronic textiles. So knit or woven substrates that incorporate capabilities for sensing, communication, power transmission, as well as interconnection technology that allows sensors or processors to be networked together within a fabric. So these kinds of materials offer the ability to change color, adapting to landscape or personal contexts, as well as all kinds of biometric information from the body. Other related applications use sensor arrays and embedded sensor technologies, from biosensors to environmental sensors to audio, to trigger audio movement, as well as audio movement and pressure sensors. And then these can be directed towards inward in terms of information that is given, to the body to react. One of our students just designed this fantastic chair that responds to your biometric signals, and it adjusts your posture based on, biometric feedback. So, or it can be sent outwards, and that's where I suppose in the media world it becomes more interesting for us. The frontier of social and personal media, I think, is very much predicated in these spaces. Because personal data management is going to be of critical importance, because the other characteristic of the Internet of Things that is really critical is that network devices that intersect with human activity produce data. And data, I'm hoping that in our industries we've shifted the way we think about our own business models to be not so much about media and very much about data. Its collection, its management, the business models that we use to respond to data, the way it allows brands and advertising and other kinds of services to be able to respond to whatever products that we develop. So this is a space of unspeakable amounts of data being produced that can be integrated in very precise analytics about user behaviors. So these ultimately provide essential information, as I was saying, both to brands and to content producers, to agencies, and at the interface of devices that are screen-based or connected to screen-based media. So just another aside, I talked about the health space, but I think that the world of providing your audiences with personal data management environments that are highly personalized and managed across these kinds of data contexts. So very much our data for recreation and sports. I'm going to show you examples where these technologies are used, linked into our media preferences in relationship to how we live and act in the world of these devices, but giving us control or apparent control over our data and our likes and dislikes and our levels of privacy and sharing. I think that that's a huge market going forward, and we tend to think about audiences and users as individuals or demographics that need to be targeted or as social groupings, but this whole world of individual management of our data and the opportunities for that I think is really huge in this world that I'm describing. So this is a kind of a fun image. This is Steve Mann, who some of you may know about, may have read about, and he was a very early on in 1980. He got very interested in this notion of, you know, wearing a head-mounted display that was really early augmented reality, and that could monitor, you know, his responses, his movements, and would be attached to him constantly and sort of wired into his perceptual world. And you can see this sort of and man became quite famous in terms of talking about something called surveillance, which is this notion that, and it's a really social media notion, is that we're all kind of watching each other, that it's more about how we watch each other and comment on each other and our engagement on a kind of local level, ultimately using a device like this. That would be the changing world. He was quite prescient, if you think 1980. And you know, where we are now. And you can see the sophistication of the devices. Again, it's Moore's law and miniaturization, allowing more and more lightweight, simple technology doing the same thing, because then, you know, we move into this space, which is the Google, of course, glasses space, which I do want to talk about a little bit. So yeah, wearable technology has been in development for many decades with very mixed results in terms of commercialization. So Philips Lab, for example, with whom I worked when I was at the BAM Center, they were heavily invested in wearable technologies through the 1990s and early part of the century, and then they kind of backed away, and now they're really back into it, and it's a highly competitive space. And we can see that, you know, in the research space, and this is what's finally kind of being pumped out into, you know, the Google world, where it can be a commercialized product. The things that are being looked at are fitness, biomedical monitoring, security applications, and games design, which I'll talk about as well. And then the fact that mobile devices, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, are so ubiquitous is very, you know, critical to the development of the space. And the other big breakthrough is inexpensive microcontroller systems, such as washable. And I underline washable because I'm in the fashion technology world. So the fact that we can make things that can be washed and dry cleaned, I mean, it's a big change. So there's a lot of development in the fashion space, but washable lily pad, Arduino, affordable LED systems, and what we've seen is the growth of craft and DIY, like do-it-yourself applications. I'm going to show you some, and the makers movement, which is all about kind of playing with this electronic space on the part of consumers. So obviously a great space for documentary production, you know, lifestyle media, etc., as all of this continues to emerge. Just moving back, and I should mention that venture capital right now, a colleague of mine who is a major venture guy the other day said that they were just investing in anything they could get their money on that was in the wearable space. They just saw it as being the next, you know, really big breakthrough. So, so there's this sort of saying out there right now, which is that Google owns the eyes and Apple owns the wrist. So that's sort of where they're planning to go in to compete, and it's not totally true because lots of other people are in that space. But in any case, anybody own a pair of Google glasses in the room? Oh darn, I was hoping. So these are really about, you know, augmented reality coming of age. That was Diane Van Furstenberg who's of course, as you know, fashion designer, has produced the Google glasses, and essentially it is a combination of Google search plus augmented reality in a really efficient, you know, miniaturized, lightweight wearable system. It can take pictures, it records videos, you can share in real time, you can speak, and it will record your messages. It has translation in it, so that's kind of fun. And so it will take what you say and translate and broadcast that if you're traveling with your Google glasses. It can, of course, query Google search. It has all manner of AR information, so augmented reality information, which is, you know, directions, maps. I like that though. My goodness, I better speed up here. Directions and maps and other kinds of information. And there's a whole series of other companies that have also entered the space. Of course, Google Glasses allows marketing and location-aware data to be pushed to you. And there's competitors to Google Glasses that work with more immersive paradigms, particularly coming out of the gaming world. And they're sort of an extension of 3D experience and gameplay and the old style head-mounted displays of virtual reality. So they're interesting. Altair Labs, if you're interested, which is a kind of portable 3D platform that's a very immersive set of glasses, but they're still lightweight. And then the Oculus Rift and Castar, which is, these are products that provide a miniature virtual reality landscape for you as you're playing in the game space, and have cameras that are built in and really great navigation capacity. So it's interesting, this space is interesting. I sometimes wonder whether, like 3D movies, it's a limited kind of technology and market, whereas the Google Glass phenomena is much more pervasive because it can be integrated into everyday life and into social media. But nonetheless, this is a big area of investment. Nike Fuel Bands, who in the room has a Nike Fuel Band? Interesting. Depends on the crowd, I guess. So if you and your friends are sporting Nike Fuel Bands, just to make sure that, here we go. So, Fuel, they're really fun to wear. They're extremely dangerous if you have any obsessive compulsive tendencies. So there's a whole group of games that Nike has developed called Nike Fuel Missions. And the game builds on a set of challenges that are presented to Nike Plus users, first of all on the desktop, and then within the experience of any of a set of Nike Plus devices. So the device measures your movement, turns it into a Nike Fuel experience, and then you have to earn Nike Fuel points to advance through the games. And players surmount obstacles in the real world, but they're playing within a virtual world. And so the Fuel Band, the Sports Watch, GPS, Nike Sports Band, iPod Band with Nike Plus, and Connect training devices all can kind of play. So you build your online portfolio of challenges, and then you have your game world as you would with many other sort of game spaces. So this is all I'm underscoring here is that this is becoming more and more of a pervasive technology, and there's great opportunities for branded content here, and also channel opportunities. Some of us heard the Google folks talking about the Google channel strategy and how that's emerging. Well, this is clearly a space there. I want to talk a little bit. These are just some of the missions, some images from what that's like to be, in the space with Nike Plus. And so biometric gameplay is a very interesting space. Qualia, and my colleague is here, who is developing Qualia, if you're interested in speaking with him, or you can see it at our booth in the sponsors hall. So this is biometric gameplay, and this definitely is, I would say, a trend that is going to continue. The Nike Sports Band is like a first entry there, but other kinds of biometric tracking include brainwave tracking, which Qualia is working with, and of course you can use signals such as heart rate or breathing. You can analyze, if you're using garments and smart textiles, sweat and changes in physical experience, and you can connect that information to game experience. So I'll come back to smartwatches. I sort of threw that in there. But yeah, or maybe I won't come back. I'll just mention that these are examples of smart watches. So this is sort of the Apple space, and it's really the watch as a mobile phone device, but with all kinds of extended capacity around biometric measurement and social, etc. And so it's like a mini screen, to think about, and to think about the relationship between that screen, your mobile device. So we're talking more and more about the in-screen universe, where this is yet another screen technology. So we're working, OCAD University is working with Xenophile Media on a property that's called Time Tremors. And it's a kids' interactive and episodic television show. It's co-produced with Australia and CEC here. And it has an interesting range of funding, which I'll get to. So basically, Max Reno, who's 14, and his 10-year-old sister find themselves banished to Ransom Hall, which is a gloomy international boarding school where the teachers are even stranger than the sinister setting. They discover nothing about the hall is ordinary, and people and objects and animals are always disappearing. And to make matters worse, they learn that their terrifying biology teacher, Miss Bugley, is actually a time-traveling demon who feeds on fear, and she's using the time tremors to search for time treasures. So I won't read you the whole plot, but essentially what happens in it is that kids who are playing the game are allowed to accompany Max and Medi on their adventures, and they meet new friends, collect time treasures, and travel through time, space, and alternate realities. So the production has many different elements to it. It has an interactive television series, web quests, it has social and trading functions, a mobile quest on the iPad and Android platforms, location-based quests using SMS and MMS, and then a competitive social multiplayer environment, and interactive trading cards with augmented reality features and online integration, user-generated content, gamification elements of badges, stats, etc., and an online video elements, as well as a wearable wristband or headband that monitors players' biometric information and intensifies their challenges, matches them with other players. These are just elements of the design. It is in production now. And we're working with Rachel Zwainen, who is a really interesting researcher based in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And Rachel and the labs at OCAD University are developing either a head-mounted device or more likely some kind of wristband, where we're sort of taking existing technology that she's developed as well as wristband technology, and we're transforming it to interact with the mobile experiences and with the gameplay in order to really personalize gameplay for people who are a part of the experience. Interestingly, the funding, so we think that the wristband will probably cost about $20, and it's kind of like a toy environment. So the idea is to get, parents, I guess, who are buying this for their kids, interested in this sort of extension of gameplay, and potentially interested in, I guess, the biometric feedback from their kids, because it's sort of interesting data if you think about that. So just the model right now for it is, it's funded by, the CMF Experimental Fund, CBC, I mentioned Australia Broadcasting Corporation, NSER, which is interesting, the National Science and Engineering Research funding agency here in Canada. So we actually have research money to facilitate this, as well as a grant between Canada and Brazil and Brazilian research funding. So, this is still very much sort of in that edge of the research space, but we think it can be commercialized, and it'll be an interesting project to test that. Other sort of related emerging technology that's probably valuable to know about is gesture control technology. This is just an example. The MYO armband, which is quite an elegant armband that can be used to basically control devices. It can control your screen experience. I think we're going to see more and more precise gesture control technology enter the media space. And then, I think what it means, again, for media producers really is, what are the interfaces that we need to be able to design to really work, for example, in this instance with a cooking show where somebody's, using gesture technology to change the screens or to move back and forth. And gesture technologies are really fun to design with, also within the game space. So I've been involved in a number of games design projects that are, the levels, as you go up the levels, of course there's haptics now in game development, but also location-based gaming using quite subtle gesture control in order to drive screens and drive experiences. Smart fashions, this is my favorite space, and we're kind of getting low on time, so I talked a little bit about what's available and emerging within this context, and garments can be amazingly subtle and smart now. There's been a huge amount of breakthrough in being able to integrate the technologies that make a garment intelligent or able to act as a controller, essentially. So like your mobile phone is a control device, your garment can actually function as a controller. So there's been a lot of development there, and just some examples in this space that are kind of interesting. So this is, these are some images from South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, which had a wearable technology show. And also consumer electronics now includes wearable fashion, which I think shows that this space is really becoming one that's going to generalize out. And I'm not showing you fashions that have you know, particular screen technologies on it, except for this, which is very cool. So this is designed by Cute Circuit, and this is created for singer Katy Perry, and the dress flickers with pink LED lights to the beat of her song with Kanye West. And it glows and lights up when she moves. And then they also, Cute Circuit also created the Twitter dress, which this is, which a number of people have played with sort of similar things over time, but basically, you know, the tweets show on your dress through very subtle LED screens that are built into the dress. Just some other examples, intelligent t-shirts. Susie Sparklab, I love this woman. She's completely interesting, and she's into sort of the maker movement. She runs a DIY lab where people can order electronic bits and bytes and basically make their own jewelry. And she has a lot of media kits that support people being able to do this at home. Something that I designed, this is like 10 years old now, but it's a flirtation device where proximity and gesture lights up displays on each of the people's clothing and relationship to each other. It's sort of fun to wear. And then intelligent t-shirts, this is very much again in the biometric space. I'm going to end by talking about 3D printing very quickly. So this is, I guess, the last area I wanted to talk about. So 3D printing, I describe it as smart or dumb. Smart because it's possible to embed RFID or other sort of sensors within 3D printing, and we're going to have eventually the ability, already use smart substrates with 3D printing. So we're going to have not only lots of stuff that we can print or print for people, but we're actually going to have it smart and connected to the Internet of Things. I'm going to probably exit by showing you a little bit of this video, so we'll exit with that. But this is a company that essentially has developed this really great capacity to print people's mods of gaming characters. So you're in a game and you create a mod.
Hey guys, I'm Will from Tesco GDC
you order
2013. I'm here at the Sandboxr booth with Berkeley Pride. You guys are making 3D printing a business, right?
Yeah, 3D printing is a business for us.
So
our business.
So what exactly is Sandboxr? What do you do?
Okay, it's pretty simple. Sandboxr takes 3D content from video games, so your favorite video game characters from your favorite video game developers will be uploaded to Sandboxr. They'll have a storefront. Sandboxr, our app, our web app, lets you go in and like custom pose and design a figurine that's completely unique to you. You hit print, and we custom manufacture it with the 3D printer.
What, like 2-3 weeks later it shows up at your doorstep?
Yeah, 2-3 weeks later, we should be sending you a box with a little figurine inside. I don't know what people know about the video game process, but it usually starts with a very sophisticated 3D package, like Maya or Max.
Okay, we're gonna cut there, and I'm just gonna take you through my very short summary because I know we're out of time. On I'm gonna just show you some images of stuff coming out of our labs as we do that. I just was really thinking about, you know, the business models in this space, and I think gaming peripherals, without question, we're already seeing that. You know, I showed you 3D printing, but all kinds of gaming peripherals and, you know, devices. So I think thinking through as we're trying to do with time tremors, you know, are there peripherals that, whether they're smart toys or
so it's kind of like
stuff you can print, that can be part of your transmedia product line. really great video, but it's very, very geeky. I just stopped at a really painful geeky point. Branded content for these new devices, you know, without question. And I think, you know, if you think about sports television and where it might move, given the kinds of devices that are emerging, data analytics and marketing. So anything that, you know, can have that much data, there has to be a way of using it. And then 3D printing with ancillaries and toys. And in terms of talent, if you're trying to do this in-house, I probably wouldn't. I would probably say, you know, work with existing companies that have that kind of talent base. And it's really a combination of physical engineering, software design, interface design, fashion design, and partnerships with companies that are in that space. So thank you. Are we out of time? No time for questions, or we're... Oh, good.
I have a question. Yeah. I know OCAD recently started offering some graduate programs that sort of broach these topics. Can you talk a little bit more about those programs and how they've come to be? Like that project going on with Sao Paulo and all of the partnerships. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it is fantastic. Complicated, but fantastic. OCAD University has both research-based graduate programs and also a graduate program, Digital Futures, that's focused on people who are working in industry. And they combine media design, digital media, engineering, lots of focus on business capacity. So, and then our research labs, we have pretty amazing research labs that can support projects like Qualia, you know, which really are looking. We have a whole lab, and our mobile lab is really, really interested in any kind of data that the body produces and the kind of future of technologies there, and thinking about you know, how, for example, in Qualia's instance, brainwaves can drive a gaming experience, which is very interesting. So. Any other questions? Okay, brave new world. Thanks for coming. Bye.